Good morning, everyone. Carpenter Rosie on the job, and welcome to day 2 of the wheelchair access ramp build. And as you can see, yesterday we pretty much finished all the ramping. I just have to secure the ends of the stringers and give a little more support. I'm going to go down today and pick up the redwood decking to go on top, and I'm going to use the 1x6 redwood decking, similar in size to this, and I think that that will be great on top. It'll weather well. I don't have to worry about any kind of rot. The redwood holds up real well. So the trick will be to measure out now and take my measurements to make sure I get all my decking on really well. And that's why I left a little bit of overhang on each side to allow for it to scooch up against the building and things. So, okay, let's get the day going and see if we can finish this up. First thing I did this morning was I built some support piers here for the stringers, because I don't want this thing to have any movement whatsoever. These 2x6x12. So putting those center supports in helps to have things very solid. So when anybody's on the ramp, they won't ever have the sensation of things flexing and feeling like it. You don't like the feeling like something's not secure, especially if you're in a wheelchair. It makes it much more difficult. So I've taken some masonry nails and I've secured the ends of these down in 3 spots all along the way, so that all that remains to do now is measure up and get the decking. One thing I've absolutely done is every step along the way is to make sure that everything is true and level. Because the last thing I want to do when I got to put boards down is have to make adjustments to the stringer. So, okay, it's time to measure up now. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the length here. I know there's going to be a little bit of spacing between boards. I'm not going to worry about that right now, because I'm going to be using redwood decking, and you want that very tight. You want the boards very tight together with minimal space, enough for water to condensation to drip through. So what I'm going to do is take the measurement from the door all the way to about maybe 3 inches from the end. I want to save the end pieces. I want to save enough so that when we get the sheet metal with the grips on it at the end, that it'll fit over top of the end pieces here. So I don't want to cover them up all the way. I want to integrate our sheet metal on there, our beginning of the ramp. So, okay, that's the deal there. So I'm going to take that whole, I'll probably do the whole measurement just so I count for waist, and see what size 1x6 redwood comes in. 8 foot, 10, 12, 14. I got to make sure that that I get the right sizes and I maximize the board length, because I have to buy whole boards and I want to sort of minimize the waste on doing it. So I've got to do some calculations. Here's the way I calculated the decking. Each one of the pieces of decking, and they gave me this as a sample. This is actually cedar. I could never afford cedar, but it's actually 5.5 inches across. So when you're taking into account the total length to be covered with decking, it's what did I figure here? It's 225 inches to be covered. That's from door to the end. And each one of these boards is 5.5 inches, so I'm going to need 42 of the boards, 1x6 by 50 inches to cover that decking, the stringers out there. So I want to maximize my cut. So they have all different lengths of the 1x6s. 1x6. They have a 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 inch. So I found out I'm going to have some wastage, but what I want to do is make sure, if I'm going to have wastage, I want each piece to be as long as possible, the waist piece. And by my calculation, if I use 16-foot pieces of redwood, and I'll get 3.84 boards out of it. So you know, I'll get almost 48 inches on the other boards, and I might be able to use that at other spots that wastage. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to buy 14 pieces of the 1x6x16 and have them cut 42 boards out of that, and I'll just bring all the waste home with me, and I'll get some fasteners to secure that. And I'll also do a little more cross bracing among the members there to make sure you know, we have a lot of lateral stability on that ramp. There's all the decking. I had that cut to size so I wouldn't have to screw around with it, and I kept the scrap for the future project. But you can see the frame. I've come back and I've shored it up some more to really give some lateral and support to the stringers here that are held by the joist hangers on the end. Because I have the piers here that help support, and I have a big piece of blocking right here, a 2x6 that I've toe nailed in for incredible strength. This thing has no movement, no flex to it whatsoever. So I guess the good news is that the frame is built, and now it's time to go ahead and let's put some decking down. It's important when you start your first piece that you try to get it up flush to the door, and you can see I've sort of inset it here. I've left a tiny little bit of space in here, and on the end I'm going to use a somewhere around here I have a paint stick that I'm using for a gauge at the end, and as long as I line everything up on this edge, I know I have 50-inch pieces, and that edge will remain great over there, and I don't have to worry about anything. So we're in good and tight here on the first board, so we can secure it. I'll probably leave maybe 1/8 of an inch spacing between the boards. I don't want it to rumble when a wheelchair goes over it. So, all right, let's get cracking. You know, guys, I say it over and over again. You know, Jesus saves lives, levels save carpenters. So what I'm doing when I'm applying the decking, I want to make sure. Let me pull out the tape measure here. I want to make sure that the distance from there to the edge of the boards is the same on both sides as I'm laying them. And I want to also make sure that things are very, very level as they go along. We took a lot of time to lay out this this decking, this whole wheelchair ramp, and I don't want to blow it now by making the boards uneven, because when we get to this drop here, you know, we want to make I want to make very sure that we're not going to have any problems with unevenness and the ramp suddenly pitches out. So just food for thought. Coming from the end of the platform, you can see that when I go to put down the boards, it's going to be about 1 inch short on the lip there. So what I want to do is grab one of these. This one kind of had a little hole in it, so I didn't want to use that. See how this is going to come up. And you see that's going to roll just about perfectly, because we set the joist hangers correctly there on that. So yeah, I'm really happy. Putting the next piece down will work just great, and yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So good planning pays off for that turn down there. All right. Okay, it's about 2 o'clock. That completes the platform decking. And you can see what I was talking about. If somebody rolls forward in a wheelchair, they've got plenty of room behind them to comfortably back up and then open the door, and you got plenty of room for swing out here, and then really easy going in. I'll work on the this transition stuff is easy. You know, a transition strip butted against the transition strip will work fine in that area right there, head to head on that, and that should be pretty much awesome. So getting ready to head down the long run now, down the ramp. And boy, is this thing is sturdy. this could, well, these timbers are, these pressure treated 2x6 stringers, they're actually all resting on concrete or supports here, so it could theoretically support whatever the concrete is holding here. So yeah, you want to feel substantial when you're on a deck. I kind of consider we're in the home stretch now, really flying getting down this decking, and I haven't encountered any problems whatsoever, and I didn't expect to, because I put real good planning into it, and I told you before, it is really solid, and it's a pitch that Jen should be able to, or anybody in its wheelchair, in a wheelchair, should be able to handle without too much difficulty. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the final decking. Well, it's hard to believe, just like that, Sunday afternoon, getting on about 4 o'clock, and the build is over. It turned out great. All I have to do now is get a metal transition plate so that it's easy to get up on the ramp. And I'm going to want to have some concrete work done here too, to put maybe a semicircle. So if somebody in a wheelchair needs to unload, they can just park like where my car is right there, and then take off the wheelchair and then roll right up the ramp. So good and solid. Didn't run into any problems, I think, because I planned everything very well. And the ramping part is only about 12 feet long, which should not pose too much of a challenge, at least in the, at least if we're talking about Jen in the years ahead. She's got some great guns on her, so we should be able to negotiate and get a lot of use out of this, and then if need be, make some other accommodation at a later date. Keep the platform, maybe remove the stringer part, and do a around the building to give a more shallow up ramp. But for today, it's great and it's good to go. And I'm going to be back in a minute with some final words and some final thoughts. Just a few final words as we finish up the project done this weekend, building the wheelchair access ramp. This was not the hardest project that you could take on, but it's one that demands a lot of precision so that you get things level in two directions, on two planes. And you can't just, the undercarriage here, the rafters, the stringers, have to virtually be perfectly level before you ever go to lay any decking on top of it. If you're not working with a level foundation, people that use the wheelchair are going to feel it on here. And you want to do the best quality build out that you can. If you build the framework properly and get her good and secured and solid, then you don't have to worry about your decking material. And this thing could probably hold tons on top of here. So I want to thank you for being here on the wheelchair access ramp build, and I'm sure Missy Jen will be able to get a lot of years out of this, and I can always put a handrail on too, connected down here for a little extra secure pulling power, especially coming down the ramp. So thanks again for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the wheelchair access ramp build. Thanks everyone.